The construction site echoed with hammers and drills, but all Sienna Hayes heard was the thundering of her own pulse. She stood in the gutted lobby of the Ocean View Hotel, dust motes dancing in shafts of afternoon light streaming through Art Deco windows. The manila envelope containing contracts felt heavy in her hands, but not as heavy as the weight of what she was about to do. Callum Stone appeared from a back hallway. His charcoal suit jacket discarded, white sleeves rolled to his elbows, dark hair disheveled, jaw tight with stress. When he saw her, he stopped cold. "Sienna." His voice was rough sandpaper on silk. "What are you doing here?" "Delivering contracts." She held up the envelope, her emerald eyes locked on his. "Unless you'd like to keep running from me." His steel gray eyes flashed with something dangerous. "I'm not running. No." She took a step closer, her burgundy heels clicking on the dusty floor. "You canceled Sunday dinner. Ignored my texts. Worked from home for a week. That's not running, Callum. That's sprinting." A muscle jumped in his jaw. "Go back to the hotel, Sienna. Make me." The air between them crackled. Outside, waves crashed against the beach. Inside, the distance separating them felt like miles and inches all at once. "Ow!" "You don't know what you're asking for," Callum said quietly. And for the first time, she heard exhaustion beneath his carefully maintained control. "Then tell me." Sienna closed the gap between them, close enough to see the conflict warring in his expression. "Stop treating me like I'm fragile. Stop acting like you're protecting me by pushing me away. I am protecting you," his hands clenched at his sides, "from me, from the mess this would create. From Jake finding out and never forgiving either of us. Jake doesn't get to decide what I want." Her voice dropped to barely above a whisper. "Neither do you." Callum's control was fraying. She could see it in the way his breathing had changed, the way his eyes kept dropping to her lips before jerking away. The construction noise faded as workers broke for lunch, leaving them alone in the skeletal remains of the hotel. "Hey, why are you doing this?" The question sounded torn from somewhere deep inside him. "You could have anyone, Sienna. Why push for something that can only end badly?" "Because I've wanted you since I was old enough to understand what wanting meant. The truth tasted like freedom. Because you look at me like I'm the only thing that matters, then pretend you don't. Because you're scared of how much you want this too. I'm 34 years old." His voice was strained. "You're 22. I've known you since you were 13. Not 13 anymore." She reached up, her fingers grazing his jaw. "And you've noticed..." His hand shot up, catching her wrist, but he didn't push her away. His thumb pressed against her racing pulse, and his eyes darkened. "If I cross this line," he said, his voice barely controlled, "there's no going back. Jake will hate me. Your career at my company becomes complicated. Everyone will talk. Are you prepared for that? Are you?" She challenged, "Because I think you've been over this line for months. You just won't admit it." The last thread of his restraint snapped. Callum pulled her against him, his mouth crashing onto hers with months of pent-up hunger. The kiss was not gentle. It was desperate, consuming, a collision of everything they had been holding back. His hands tangled in her honey-blonde hair, destroying her careful twist. Her fingers clutched his shirt, pulling him closer, deeper, harder. When they finally broke apart, both breathing raggedly, Callum pressed his forehead against hers. "This changes everything," he whispered. "I know." Sienna smiled, her lips swollen and her heart racing. "That's the point." His phone buzzed in his pocket. Then again, and again. With a curse, Callum pulled it out, his expression shifting as he read the screen. "What is it?" Sienna asked, suddenly cold despite the Miami heat. Callum's face had gone ashen. "Jake's on his way here. He knows you're with me." Someone from the hotel told him. The world tilted sideways. How much did they tell him? Her voice sounded distant to her own ears. Callum looked at her with an expression caught between desire and devastation. "Everything." Jake Hayes burst through the Ocean View's entrance like a hurricane, his face twisted with betrayal and rage. Sienna had never seen her brother look at her with such fury. Behind him, the Miami sun painted everything in harsh, unforgiving light. How long? Jake's voice cut through the construction site like a blade. How long has this been going on? Sienna stepped forward, positioning herself between Jake and Callum. It's not what you think. It's not. Jake's laugh was bitter. Because Madison from reception just called me, worried sick, saying you've been throwing yourself at Callum for months. Coffee deliveries. Late-night texts. The gala, his eyes burned. Tell me she's lying, Sienna. Silence stretched too long. Jake's expression crumbled. You're my little sister. Ah! His voice broke. And you. He turned to Callum with such venom that Sienna flinched. You're supposed to be my best friend. 10 years, Callum. 10 years of brotherhood. And you go after my 22-year-old sister? I didn't go after her, Callum said quietly, his hands raised in a placating gesture. Jake, listen to me. Don't. Jake stepped closer, vibrating with barely contained violence. Don't you dare try to spin this. You've always known she was off limits. I'm not a possession. Sienna's voice rang out sharp and clear. You don't get to decide who's off limits for me. Jake whirled on her. He's 12 years older than you. He's my best friend. He's your boss, for God's sake. How can you not see how wrong this is? Because I love him. The words escaped before Sienna could stop them, raw and honest and irreversible. The world went silent. Even the ocean seemed to hold its breath. Callum's head snapped toward her, his expression unreadable. Jake looked like he'd been struck. You don't know what love is, Jake said finally, his voice hollow. You're infatuated. You'll get hurt, and then what? I lose my sister and my best friend when this implodes. It won't implode, Sienna insisted, though her voice wavered. Already has. Jake's eyes were wet, and that broke her heart more than his anger. Callum, tell her. Tell her this was a mistake. Tell her it can't happen. All eyes turned to Callum. He stood perfectly still, his jaw clenched, internal war plain across his features. Seconds stretched into eternities. Jake's right, Callum said finally, and Sienna felt the ground open beneath her feet. This was a mistake. I never should have let it go this far. Callum, she whispered, disbelief choking her. You should go back to the hotel. Wouldn't meet her eyes. Consider taking some time off. We'll discuss a transfer to another property. A transfer. Sienna's voice rose. You're sending me away? It's for the best. His tone was professional, distant, the same voice he used with strangers. For everyone, you're a coward. The words came out broken and fierce. You finally admit you want this. You kiss me like I'm the only thing that matters. And now you're throwing me away to keep Jake happy. I'm choosing my family, Jake interjected. Something you should understand. He's not your family. Sienna's tears came hot and angry. He's your friend. I'm your blood. But you're making me choose between you and my own heart. No. Jake's expression hardened. You made that choice when you went after him? Actions have consequences, Sienna. She looked between them, these two men she loved in entirely different ways, both united in pushing her aside. The betrayal tasted like copper on her tongue. Fine. Tina grabbed her purse, her hand shaking. You want me gone? I'm gone. But don't pretend you're protecting me, either of you. You're protecting yourselves. She stormed toward the exit, her vision blurred with tears. Behind her, she heard Jake speak. Thank you for doing the right thing, in Callum's response. So quiet, she almost missed it. Yeah, the right thing. Sienna made it to her car before the sobs took over, her carefully constructed world collapsing around her like the demolished, total walls. She didn't see Callum watching from the window. His hand pressed against the glass, his expression destroyed. She didn't know that in 2 days. Everything would get so much worse, but she was about to find out. 2 days of silence felt like 2 years. Sienna had called in sick, unable to face the Meridian Grand or the whispers that surely circulated through every department by now. She spent her time in her apartment alternating between rage and heartbreak. Her phone silent except for one text from Callum that simply read, I'm sorry. She hadn't responded. On Saturday evening, not Callum. Madison from reception. Sienna, I know you probably hate me right now. Madison's voice was urgent, breathless. But you need to know something. About Callum and your brother. Ice flooded Sienna's veins. What about them? I was in the break room today. Jake came to see Callum, and I heard them talking in his office. The door wasn't completely closed. Madison paused. Sienna, this whole thing, the confrontation at Ocean View? Jake knew you'd be there. He planned it. What are you talking about? Jake found out weeks ago that you had feelings for Callum. He told me to watch you, to report back. He wanted to catch you together so he could force Callum to end it before it really started. Madison's voice cracked. I'm so sorry. I thought I was helping. I thought you'd get hurt if it continued. The betrayal hit like a physical blow. Jake orchestrated the entire thing? There's more. Madison sounded like she was crying now. I heard Jake today telling Callum that if he ever touches you again, he'll destroy him. Not just their friendship. Business. He said he'd expose some deal Callum made 3 years ago. Something illegal. Something that could send him to prison. Sienna's mind reeled. What deal? I don't know specifics. But Callum looked terrified, Sienna. And Jake said if Callum stays away from you, he'll keep the secret. He's blackmailing him. The room spun. Everything Sienna thought she understood about the confrontation, about Callum's rejection, shattered and reformed into something uglier. Callum hadn't chosen Jake over her out of friendship. He'd been forced. Where's Callum now? Sienna's voice was steel. His penthouse, I think. But Sienna, Jake is serious. If you go to him, if this continues, he'll ruin Callum's entire life. Then he should have thought of that before he manipulated us both. Sienna hung up and grabbed her keys, fury propelling her forward. The drive to Callum's waterfront building passed in a blur of streetlights and adrenaline. The doorman recognized her and let her up without question. She pounded on Callum's door until he opened it. Shock and something like desperate hope flashing across his face. Sienna, you can't be here. I know about Jake. She pushed past him into the penthouse. Its floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Biscayne Bay. I know about the blackmail. I know why you really ended things. Callum went pale. How did you? It doesn't matter. She turned to face him, her heart breaking at the defeated slump of his shoulders. Tell me the truth. All of it. What is Jake holding over you? For a long moment, Callum just stared at her. Then, as if a dam had broken, he collapsed onto the couch, head in his hands. 3 years ago, I made a deal with a development company. His voice was hollow. They wanted to build on protected wetlands outside the city. I knew it was illegal, but I was desperate. The company was failing. I needed the investment money. Did you go through with it? No. He looked up, eyes haunted. I backed out at the last minute, returned the money. But I'd already signed documents, sent emails. If Jake releases those, the context doesn't matter. I'd be finished. How does Jake even know about this? I told him. Callum's laugh was bitter. 3 years ago, drunk and guilty, I confessed everything. He said he understood, that we all make mistakes. I thought he was being a friend. His jaw clenched. He was collecting ammunition. Sienna sat beside him, processing the magnitude of Jake's betrayal. Her brother, who claimed to protect her, had manipulated them both with surgical precision. So what do we do? She asked quietly. We. Callum turned to her, something breaking in his expression. Sienna, there is no we. Jake wins. I stay away from you, and you get to keep your brother and your career, and you get to keep your freedom. That's not why I'm doing this. His voice cracked. I'd burn it all down, every hotel, every dollar, if it meant I could be with you. But Jake isn't bluffing. He'll destroy me. And then where will you be? Hated by your brother, in love with a man in prison, your career in ruins. You think I care about any of that more than I care about you? You should. Sienna grabbed his face, forcing him to look at her. You don't get to decide what I should care about. You don't get to sacrifice yourself to protect me from choices I'm willing to make. Sienna. Her name sounded like prayer and apology. I can't let you throw your life away for me. Then what do we do? She whispered. Because I can't watch you martyr yourself. And I can't forgive Jake for this. Callum pulled her close, his arms wrapped around her like he was trying to memorize the feeling. I don't know, he admitted. But we're running out of time. Jake wants an answer by Monday. Either I agree to never see you again, sign a document promising it, or he goes to the authorities. They sat in silence, the city glittering below them. Trapped in an impossible choice, finally, Sienna pulled back, her eyes fierce. Then we have until Monday to find another way. Sunday morning arrived with cruel sunshine, the kind of perfect Miami day that mocked the darkness of their situation. Sienna had spent the night at Callum's penthouse, both of them exhausted from hours of strategizing that led nowhere. Every solution ended the same way. Someone lost everything. They sat on his balcony, coffee growing cold in their hands, watching sailboats drift across the bay. I could confess, Callum said finally. Go to the authorities myself. Control the narrative before Jake does. You'd still face charges. Prison time, maybe? But Jake loses his leverage. And you'd be free of this. Free. Sienna's voice was sharp. I'd be watching the man I love destroy himself. That's not freedom, Callum. That's torture. His hand found hers, fingers intertwining. I never meant for this to get so complicated. Love is always complicated. She turned to face him, sunlight catching in her honey blonde hair. The question is whether it's worth fighting for. You know it is. But at what cost? Before Sienna could answer, her phone buzzed. A text from Jake. Family brunch at Mom and Dad's. You're expected. 1 hour, her stomach twisted. Their parents had no idea about any of this. Jake was escalating, putting her in an impossible position. Don't go, Callum said, reading her expression. I have to. If I don't show, Jake will know something's wrong. He might move up his timeline. She stood, resolve hardening. But I'm done playing his game. It's time he understood what he's really destroying. An hour later, Sienna walked into her childhood home in Coral Gables, scent of her mother's famous pancakes filling the air. Jake sat at the kitchen island, looking remarkably calm for someone orchestrating emotional terrorism. There's my girl, her father called from the stove. We haven't seen you in weeks. Work's been busy, Sienna lied, avoiding Jake's knowing look. Brunch was torture. Her mother chatted about neighbors and upcoming holidays while Sienna pushed food around her plate, hyper-aware of Jake watching her every move. When their parents stepped outside to tend the garden, Jake finally spoke. You saw him, didn't you? His voice was flat. After I explicitly told you both to stay away from each other. You mean after you blackmailed him? Sienna's whisper was venomous. After you manipulated us both like chess pieces? Jake's expression didn't change. I'm protecting you. You're controlling me. There's a difference. It's not right for you, Sienna. The age gap, the power dynamic, the inevitable crash when reality sets in. Jake leaned forward. I've seen Callum's relationships. They burn bright and fast, then implode. I won't watch that happen to you. So you'd rather blackmail him into prison? I'd rather he make the smart choice and walk away. Jake's eyes hardened. The document is ready. All he has to do is sign a binding agreement to cease all non-professional contact with you. If he does that by tomorrow morning, his secret stays buried. And if he doesn't, then I go to the state attorney on Tuesday. Callum Stone becomes just another corrupt developer who thought he was above the law. Sienna's hand shook with rage. You'll lose me too. If you do this, I'll never forgive you. Never. For the first time, Jake's mask cracked. Pain flickered across his features. Maybe, but you'll be safe. You'll move on. Find someone appropriate. That's worth losing your anger for a few years. A few years? Sienna's laugh was hollow. Try forever, Jake. You don't come back from this kind of betrayal? I'll take that risk. They stared at each other, the chasm between them growing wider with each second. Their mother's voice drifted through the window, talking about flowers, oblivious to the family imploding inside. Sienna stood, her decision crystallizing. I'm going to tell Mom and Dad everything. About what you're doing. Who you really are. Go ahead. Jake's voice was cold. They'll side with me. You know they will. They already think Callum's too old for you. This will just confirm it. He was right, and they both knew it. Sienna grabbed her purse, her vision blurred with tears. I hope it's worth it, Jake. I hope protecting me from my own choices is worth destroying 3 lives. She made it to her car before calling Callum, her voice breaking as she told him everything. When she finished, silence stretched between them. I have to sign it, Callum said finally. There's no other way. There is. Sienna's voice was steady, despite the tears streaming down her face. I walk away. I leave Miami. Take a job somewhere else. If I'm gone, Jake has no reason to come after you. Is Sienna. No, it's the only solution that doesn't end with you in prison or as both miserable under Jake's thumb. She wiped her eyes, clarity emerging from chaos. I sacrifice my home, my family, my job, but you stay free. And maybe, someday, when this is blown over, when Jake's moved on, we find each other again. That's not a solution. That's you giving up everything. For you. Her voice cracked. That's what love is, Callum. Sacrifice. And right now, this is mine to make. Monday morning, Sienna walked into the Meridian Grand's HR department and submitted her resignation, effective immediately. By afternoon, she'd accepted a position at a boutique hotel in Charleston, 8 hours away. She didn't say goodbye to Jake. She didn't tell her parents the real reason she was leaving. And when Callum showed up at her apartment that night, begging her to reconsider, she kissed him one last time and whispered, "This isn't goodbye. It's see you later when." His voice broke on the word, "When we're both free." 3 months passed. Sienna threw herself into her new life in Charleston, building a career, making friends, pretending her heart wasn't still in Miami. Callum texted occasionally, always brief, always painful. "I miss you. I'm sorry." "I love you," she never responded. Responding made it harder. Then, on a cold February morning, her phone rang. Jake's name flashed on the screen. Against her better judgment, Sienna answered, "He's in the hospital." "Callum, there was an accident. He's asking for you." The world stopped spinning. How bad? Bad enough that you should come home? The hospital smelled like antiseptic and fear. Sienna's heels clicked against linoleum as she ran through corridors, Jake's directions echoing in her head. 3rd floor, ICU, room 347. She found him connected to machines. His face bruised and swollen, his normally commanding presence reduced to fragility under white sheets. Her breath caught. "Sienna." His voice was barely a whisper, but his eyes found hers immediately. She crossed to him, taking his hand carefully, aware of the 4 lines. What happened? Construction accident at the Ocean View site. He tried to smile, winced. Scaffolding collapse. Ironic, isn't it? The place where everything started. Don't talk. Rest. Need to tell you something. His grip tightened on her hand. In case I don't get another chance. Stop. You're going to be fine. Listen. His intensity cut through her denial. Jake came to see me this morning. Before the accident, he had your resignation letter. He'd been carrying it for 3 months. Sienna went still. He told me he was wrong. Callum's eyes were bright with unshed tears. Said he'd been living with what he did, watching me fall apart without you, and he couldn't do it anymore. He came to tear up the blackmail agreement. To give us his blessing? Jake said that. He was crying, Sienna. Your brother was crying, apologizing, saying he'd let fear and control destroy the 2 people he loves most. Callum's voice cracked. I was on my way to Charleston. To find you, to bring you home. That's when the scaffolding gave way. Tears streamed down Sienna's face. Jake, he's in the waiting room. Been there for hours. Callum squeezed her hand weakly. Go talk to him, please. He needs to know you're okay. That we're okay. Sienna found Jake in the waiting room, his head in his hands, looking smaller than she'd ever seen him. When he heard her footsteps, he looked up, his face ravaged by guilt and grief. I'm sorry. Words burst out of him like a confession. God, Sienna, I'm so sorry. I thought I was protecting you, but I was just destroying everyone I love. I was selfish and controlling, And I almost got Callum killed because he was racing to find you, and I just stopped. Sienna sat beside him, and after a moment's hesitation pulled him into a hug. He collapsed against her, shaking. I thought he was going to die, Jake sobbed. I thought you'd come back and he'd be gone, and you'd hate me forever, and it would be my fault. I did hate you. Her voice was soft but honest. For months, I hated you. But Jake, you came back. You tried to fix it. That matters, does it? After everything I did, it's a start. She pulled back to look at him. But you have a lot to make up for. To both of us, Jake nodded, wiping his eyes. Whatever it takes, swear. Whatever you both need. 2 weeks later, Callum was released from the hospital with a clean bill of health and strict orders to rest. Sienna had moved back to Miami, back to her apartment, back to the Meridian Grand, where her resignation had been quietly revoked. Jake had given them space, respecting boundaries he'd violated before. But slowly, carefully, they were rebuilding. Sunday dinners resumed, awkward at first, then gradually easier. On a warm March evening, Callum took Sienna to the Ocean View Hotel. The renovation was nearly complete, the Art Deco beauty restored to its former glory. They stood in the lobby where everything had fallen apart months ago. I'm renaming it, Callum said, his arm around her waist. The Phoenix seemed appropriate. For the hotel or for us? Both. He turned her to face him, his steel-gray eyes soft in the golden hour light. We burned down and rose from the ash. Maybe not unscathed, but stronger, together. It's poetic for a hotel developer. I've had time to think. Almost dying does that. His smile was genuine now, free of the weight he'd carried. I love you, Sienna Hayes. I've loved you through every moment of this disaster. And I'm done letting fear or loyalty or age or anything else keep me from saying it. I love you too. She rose on her toes to kiss him, gentle and sure. Always have. Always will, even though I'm old and stubborn and almost got us both killed. Even though her smile was radiant. But maybe try not to fall off any more buildings, deal. They stood in the setting sun. Two people who'd fought through betrayal and sacrifice and impossible choices to find their way back to each other. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. Jake's redemption was a work in progress. The whispers at the hotel hadn't stopped. The age gap still existed, but Sienna had learned that love wasn't about perfect circumstances. It was about finding someone worth fighting for. Even when the odds were stacked against you, it was about sacrifice that didn't feel like loss. It was about second chances in Phoenix Risings and brothers who learned to let go as they walked out of the Phoenix together, hand in hand. Sienna glanced back at the building one last time. The place where everything had broken and been rebuilt, where endings became beginnings. Ready to go home? Callum asked. She squeezed his hand. With you? Always. The Miami sky blazed pink and gold. A new day waiting on the horizon, and for the first time in months, Sienna Hayes believed in happy endings. Not perfect ones, not easy ones, but real ones. Earned through fire and faith and the courage to choose love despite the cost. The end.